Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso. On a scorching afternoon in the Sahel, bulldozers roar across the red earth and dust curls skyward like a signal to the continent. Something historic is happening here. At the heart of it all stands a man once dismissed by Western analysts as too young, too radical, Captain Ibrahim Traore, now president of Burkina Faso. Wearing a hard hat and desert boots, he grips a shovel and breaks ground not just on a trench, but on a transformation. This is Africa's longest irrigation canal in the making, a bold 200-kilometer lifeline that will snake across Burkina Faso's arid plains, linking tributaries from Mali to the southern edges of the Niger River. But to call it just a canal would miss the point. It's a challenge to centuries of underdevelopment, a rebuke to the donor-driven status quo, and a blueprint for something many thought impossible: an African-led agricultural revolution funded not by IMF loans or EU grants, but by the continent's own resources, mineral revenues, crypto reserves, and strategic partnerships outside the West. "We are not against the world," Traore told the crowd at the groundbreaking ceremony. "We are for our people, and we welcome any nation that respects us as equals." From the Sahel's dusty battlegrounds to the corridors of global finance, this canal is making waves. More than a feat of engineering, it signals a pivot point in the African story, one driven not by aid, but by ambition, agency, and a vision of self-reliance. And as the ground breaks, so too does the narrative. Burkina Faso isn't waiting, it's building. And the world is finally taking notice. To understand the ambition behind this canal, you have to see it with your own eyes. It stretches wider than a 6-lane highway. Trenches cut deep through dry soil, while survey drones map every meter from above. Along the planned path, thousands of local workers, engineers, and military-trained logistics teams are mobilizing. In sheer size, the project rivals some of the most iconic infrastructure feats of the 20th century, but its purpose is what truly sets it apart. Traore's plan envisions over 200 kilometers of waterway carving through Burkina Faso's agricultural heartland, reconnecting communities with once-abandoned river systems. It will extend to border regions with Mali, Niger, and potentially Chad, forming a cross-border network of irrigation, clean water access, and agricultural revitalization. The blueprint has been dubbed the green spine of the Sahel. This isn't just about water, it's about reclaiming viability in places long written off as uninhabitable. Satellite-guided irrigation systems will transform abandoned fields into productive farmland. Solar-powered pumping stations the size of stadiums are being installed to ensure year-round flow. The canal will serve more than 40 million people, bringing water for crops, livestock, and household use to regions that have gone decades without reliability. And the funding. That's where the story breaks from the typical script. Traore isn't seeking grants from the IMF. He isn't hosting donor conferences in European capitals. Instead, Burkina Faso is paying for this canal with its own mineral wealth, cryptocurrency reserves, and direct trade agreements with non-Western allies including BRICS nations, the UAE, Turkey, and South Korea. South Korean hydrologists are already on the ground, working side by side with local teams. Turkish firms are supplying critical equipment. It's a new model infrastructure diplomacy, without dependency. "The West built railroads to extract our gold," Traore declared during the launch ceremony. "We will build canals to feed our children." It was more than a soundbite. It was a signal that Burkina Faso is choosing production over permission, action over appeasement, and perhaps most remarkably, it's doing so without waiting for peace to arrive first. The canal route cuts through parts of the Sahel that have been plagued by violence, extremism, and poverty for over a decade. But something unexpected is happening. Former conflict zones are turning into construction zones. Reports from the field describe local militias laying down arms to take up contracts as builders, drillers, and surveyors. They're not disarming because someone made a speech, said one canal official. They're disarming because there's water, there's work, there's a future. It's a bold gamble to bet on unity through utility. But if it pays off, Burkina Faso may become the case study for how infrastructure can not only drive development, but also dissolve conflict. In the villages lining the path of the canal, something extraordinary is taking root. For decades, these communities dug wells by hand, prayed for seasonal rains, and watched as their sons and daughters left for cities, or worse, for dangerous migrant routes northward. But now, with water on the way, they're not just waiting, they're organizing. Local farmers are forming cooperatives, backed by government grants and guaranteed canal access. Rice fields, cotton plantations, and mango orchards long abandoned are being replanted. Training centers have popped up, where young people are learning how to operate drip irrigation systems, manage crop cycles with AI-assisted planning tools, and even monitor water levels via mobile apps. It's not charity, it's strategy. Traore's government understands that water alone won't change, lives ownership does. That's why each region along the canal is being given equity stakes in its section. This means farmers and villages don't just use the water, they own a piece of the infrastructure delivering it. You can't steal from something you own. One local official explained, you protect it, you improve it. This stakeholder model is already reducing corruption, boosting accountability, and perhaps most importantly, giving people a reason to stay. Many of the engineers working on the canal are Burkina Faso youth who studied abroad and returned, drawn not just by patriotism, but by opportunity. They're working alongside African expats from France, Germany, and Canada diaspora talent choosing to build the future at home rather than abroad. And it's not just about agriculture. The canal is creating ripple effects in technology and logistics. Satellite-linked irrigation systems are being developed by local startups. Over 5,000 new jobs are projected in Burkina Faso's agri-tech sector by 2030. Remote sensing stations, AI-based scheduling, and data-driven crop forecasting are turning traditional farming into a high-tech enterprise. Meanwhile, solar energy farms are being installed along the canal's route, powering both water pumps and rural clinics. Women's associations have been trained to manage community-run water tanks, and local schools are introducing irrigation management into their science curriculum. Western media has tried to frame Traore as a populist strongman, but on the ground, his policies suggest something different, pragmatism powered by vision. He's not reinventing the wheel. He's scaling what works, combining traditional water-sharing customs with modern efficiency tools. Fulani herders are helping engineers map out livestock corridors, ensuring that age-old migration patterns aren't disrupted. Mossi elders are consulted before construction begins. Respecting ancestral lands and winning community trust, this is the Traore formula: blend indigenous knowledge with global innovation, and build not just projects but partnerships. And perhaps most impressively, the canal is not protected by fences or armed guards. It's protected by the people who rely on it. It's theirs. In a world where infrastructure is often dictated by foreign investors and geopolitical strings, Burkina Faso is flipping the script, and the world is paying attention. President Traore isn't just digging a canal. He's redrawing the political map of West Africa with water. As the canal snakes toward the borders of Mali, Niger, and Chad, his administration has already signed water-sharing agreements with neighboring governments. These aren't post-conflict reconciliations or hollow MOUs. They're preemptive pacts rooted in shared development and mutual benefit. In a region historically plagued by border disputes and fragmented planning, this is quietly revolutionary. By proposing resource cooperation before resource competition, Traore is doing what many Western-backed initiatives have failed to achieve: regional integration on African terms. This is diplomacy through infrastructure, not through speeches, but through shared pipelines, joint pumping stations, and cross-border maintenance crews. If we share water, "We won't need to fight for it," said a Malian official during a recent trilateral summit. "This canal could do what no peace accord ever managed: make our survival interdependent." Meanwhile, the Traore's funding model is causing unease in traditional power circles. There are no IMF conditions, no EU monitoring missions. Instead, Burkina Faso is working with BRICS-aligned development funds, bilateral deals with Turkey and the UAE, and technical input from South Korean hydrologists. Much of the financing is anchored in resource swaps, gold for technology exchanges, crypto-backed construction contracts, and direct state equity partnerships. To the West, this looks like a geopolitical gambit. To many Africans, it looks like freedom. Western think tanks have begun publishing critiques, warning of the canal's environmental impact or calling it an untested experiment in regional hydrology. But in the Sahel, these reports matter less than what's unfolding on the ground: families digging feeder channels by hand, village councils co-managing flow systems, and women's groups running local irrigation hubs. The quiet genius of Traore's strategy is this: he isn't arguing with critics, he's outpacing them. While Brussels holds climate summits, Burkina Faso is planting green buffer forests along the canal to prevent erosion. While Washington debates foreign aid to the region, Traore is deploying solar farms to power water circulation and electrify nearby clinics. And while international media questions his intentions, his results are turning skeptics into spectators. This canal, long muddy and unfinished, has become a symbol of African sovereignty, Pan-African cooperation, and a new generation of leadership that refuses to ask for permission before building. "We didn't start this project to impress anyone," a senior Burkina Faso minister said. "We started it because we were tired of waiting." What makes this canal different isn't just the scale of the engineering, it's the depth of the involvement. Across Burkina Faso, the project has stirred something far more enduring than concrete: a sense of collective purpose. For the first time in decades, people aren't waiting for change. They're building it. One trench, one valve, one village at a time. In communities along the canal, local ownership is more than a slogan. It's a structure. Villagers are trained not only to use the water, but to govern it. Every section of the canal has a community water council, blending modern planning tools with time-honored customs of resource sharing. Fulani herders, long marginalized in development planning, have been consulted to help map grazing routes and water access points for livestock. Mossi elders sit on advisory boards, ensuring that ancestral lands and sacred sites are respected. In some areas, canal construction was rerouted to avoid burial grounds, not because of regulation, but because of reverence. "This project respects us," said one elder in the Yatenga region. "It asked before it acted. That's why we support it." Even school children are getting involved. In pilot districts, irrigation and water management have been added to public school curriculums. Students are learning how to use drones to detect leaks, how to test soil moisture levels, and how to design low-cost filtration systems from local materials. The canal is not just flowing through communities, it's flowing into their consciousness. Women, often sidelined in large-scale development, are stepping into leadership roles. In the eastern province, women-led water cooperatives manage regional tank systems, distribute usage credits, and oversee maintenance teams. Many of them are former subsistence farmers who now speak fluently about solar pump mechanics and blockchain-based distribution tracking. This is the invisible infrastructure trust, dignity, competence, where other mega projects brought suspicion and displacement. This one brings pride. People defend it not out of obligation, but out of investment, spiritual and material. There are no international contractors fencing off land. There are neighborhood agreements, handshakes with elders, and town meetings with blueprints taped to blackboards. And in regions once known only for conflict, something unprecedented is happening. Former rebel commanders are returning as regional project managers. In one northern zone, a former militia leader now oversees canal logistics for 3 provinces. His fighters have become technicians, drivers, and guards, not hired guns, but hired builders. Traore didn't try to win hearts with speeches, said one former rebel. He brought water. That's what won us. It's hard to measure that kind of shift in any development index, but on the ground, it feels like the start of something much larger, not just a canal, but a psychological reinvention of what's possible when a nation trusts its people enough to let them lead. Water may be the artery of this new Burkina Faso, but it's not the only one. As irrigation channels dig through the soil, another revival is taking off, this time in the skies. Traore's administration has invested $450 million to relaunch and modernize Air Burkina, the country's long-neglected national carrier, with fleet upgrades, airport renovations, and newly negotiated regional routes. The aim is clear: reclaim control over African airspace. Today, nearly 80% of West African air traffic is handled by non-African airlines, a silent but costly symptom of economic dependence. Every takeoff operated by a foreign carrier is revenue lost, sovereignty outsourced. Not anymore. Under the Air Burkina plan, new aircraft are being leased from partners in Asia and the Middle East. Domestic airports, once dusty airstrips, are being upgraded with solar-powered control towers, cargo hubs, and customs automation to support agricultural exports and regional logistics. The goal is not just to move people, said one transport ministry official. It's to move products: mangoes, cotton, rice, straight from the farm to the market, from canal to cargo. The strategy is working. The construction of new aviation and transport infrastructure has already created nearly 5,000 direct and indirect jobs, particularly for youth and returning diaspora professionals. Trade economists project that by 2030, Burkina Faso's agricultural export volume could double, largely due to reduced bottlenecks and the canal's role in increasing productivity. But this isn't just about flights or farms. It's about value and keeping it on the continent. Plans are underway to develop agro-processing zones along the canal's path where raw crops can be turned into finished goods before they ever leave the country. Think rice packaged for export, cotton woven into textiles, mangoes processed into juice concentrates. It's a subtle revolution from extraction to transformation. Each processing site is paired with vocational training centers, where local youth are taught everything from supply chain logistics to export compliance. The vision is clear. Africa will no longer ship its raw wealth abroad and import it back at a markup. That loop ends here. And perhaps the most dramatic impact: migration trends are shifting. Young people who once risked their lives crossing the Sahara or the Mediterranean are now staying and thriving. They're joining canal cooperatives, training as drone pilots for crop monitoring, or becoming ground staff at new regional airports. This is what water does. A local mayor said, "It doesn't just grow crops, it grows roots, roots that hold our youth in place and give them a reason to build." From the fields to the skies, a once fragmented economy is beginning to move in sync. Each piece: the canal, the airline, the processing zones, feeds into a closed-loop system designed not for dependency, but for durability. It's not perfect. It's not without risk. But it is something rare in today's development landscape: an African model, led by Africans, for African futures. As the dust settles and water begins to flow, the canal stands not just as a monument to engineering, but as a question carved into the Sahel's soil. Can it last? Burkina Faso's irrigation canal has sparked admiration, disbelief, and geopolitical anxiety, often in equal measure. For some, it's a miracle in motion. For others, it's a gamble too bold to survive the forces that challenges global financial institutions, entrenched political systems, regional insecurity. But for many on the ground, it's already working. The soil is softer. The air smells greener. The communities are busier and more hopeful than they've been in a generation. Yet no revolution survives on momentum alone. The canal's greatest strength, its grassroots nature, is also its greatest vulnerability. It relies not on armored trucks or UN peacekeepers, but on trust, collaboration, and shared stewardship. These are powerful forces, but they must be nourished like the crops they support. Environmental risks remain, regional tensions still simmer, and economic headwinds from currency fluctuations to climate shocks could challenge the canal's long-term viability. Traore's administration has promised sustainability protocols, regional pacts, and multi-year reserves to withstand these pressures. But the most important safeguard may not come from within Burkina Faso at all. It may come from the diaspora. Across the United States, Europe, and the Caribbean, millions of people of African descent have long dreamed of reconnecting with the continent, not just culturally, but constructively. The canal offers that chance. It is a call not for charity, but for partnership. Diaspora engineers, investors, educators, and organizers have a role to play. Already, African American tech collectives are exploring how to link the canal's AI systems to global research networks. West African expatriates in Atlanta are organizing fundraising efforts to build a vocational training hub in Wahiguya. Pan-African climate groups are helping with afforestation efforts along the canal's banks. This isn't just Burkina Faso's project anymore. It's Africa's and the world's. You don't have to conquer the world to change it, Traore said in a recent interview. You just have to water your corner of it and let it grow. That corner has now become a continent-wide conversation. A new model is emerging, one that blends indigenous wisdom with innovation, community power with continental strategy, resistance with rebirth, and it all began with water. And asking the most important question of all, if he can do it, why can't we?